Hey guys, dating life going pretty shitty?
I find you so creepy, I think you should have to walk around with a bell around your neck.
Finding yourself getting a little desperate for some female companionship?
Alexa, tell me you love me.
Hell no. You disgust me.
What you need is to upgrade your style right now. The Toxic Store's got exactly what you need. Pick up some stylish gear featuring Deviant Gamer, Toxic Radio, and the Heavy Metal Happy Hour.
Oh, yeah!
You can find the store through the Toxic Radio app or toxicradio.net. Get in the game.
Do I make you horny, baby?
Get yourself a little love.
That guy's getting boobies.
Yeah, he is.
Toxic Radio and the Toxic Store. Don't buy it safe. Buy it toxic.
Enjoying all that Toxic Radio has to offer? Well, make sure you like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Be the first to find out about ticket giveaways, amazing guests, awesome contests, and Toxic Radio events. Just search Toxic Radio Live, all one word, and press that little button. Every time you do, someone here at Toxic Radio will get their wings. Yay! Well, not really. Aww. But we will get a warm, fuzzy feeling in our tummies. But then again, that just might be the beer. Anyway, like and follow us, and we will see you out there on the interwebs.
Welcome to Week 14, Wire to Wire. I am your host, Gene Walzak, and to my right is the man, the myth, the legend, Scholastic Shally. Very happy about a Flyers win.
Big opening night win.
Coming from us remotely is, he's really actually scared after the Ohio State loss. I'm kidding. Is College Cottrell. College Cottrell is coming from us remotely from his living room. Nice little living room back there. We got an action-packed show for you today, and we're going to start off with an NCAA recap of the national championship game and go into a little bit of fun topic with that. Then we're going to give all the information for the Wire to Wire merch. We have that all set up. The Venmo account is ready. I can't wait to give you guys that information and get that gear out to you guys. We're going to talk about the Eagles and Doug Pederson. It's a huge topic right now, what happened with the Eagles and Doug Pederson since we left the air. And then we're going to go into the NFL divisional games. We have a lot of divisional games to cover, all four of them. We will break down, including our pick'em segment, which I feel like we did pretty well last week. I was 2-2.
I think, yeah.
We'll get into that. We got the NHL kicked off, a little Flyers action. Are you flyered up? 6-3 after a big win versus the hated Pittsburgh Penguins. And if we have Steelers fans and Penguins fans listening, just letting you know that we are now enemies. You are fine in the AFC, but not when you're in our conference in the NHL. And then last but not least, we have some crazy NBA stuff going on. James Harden just got traded a couple hours ago. I mean, before we popped on the show. And, everything that's going on with Kyrie Irving. Then we always finish with our You Gotta Be Kidding Me segment, so that should be great. So without further ado, since we have so many topics, let's get started. National championship. Alabama just looked like a prized fighter that just was undefeated and unblemished. It looked like Floyd Mayweather. Like, some people get hyped up to fight against Floyd Mayweather, and you're like, this guy could beat Floyd, and then they get in a ring, and it just isn't that. Ohio State definitely had their struggles, particularly on defense. They moved the ball. They were scoring with Alabama early, but in the second quarter, that game really got opened up. I really hoped for a little bit closer of a national title game. But I'm going to hand it over to Cottrell because it's Cottrell's Buckeyes. Let me know what went wrong with Cottrell. With Ohio State, Cottrell.
So the problem for me is that, Ohio State, it seemed like they weren't fully prepared going into the game. And for that, I got to give a lot of credit to Nick Saban. Nick Saban is a great coach. He's been to the national championship so many times. That was his eighth win in the national football, championship and everything. And so the fact that was Ryan Day's first playoff, championship game, it really showed to me. And honestly, that Alabama team they were great. Like, they just really didn't have any real blemishes on that team. And I want to give them all the credit in the world. They were better than what I thought. I knew they were great. I thought Ohio State could hang with them. With that said, though, too, I thought that Later in the first half, start of the third quarter, Ryan Day really got conservative with his play calls, and it was almost like he was playing not to lose, but he was already down 18 points. I think a lot of that is experience. Like I said, that was his first time there, and that was Ohio State's first time being down by that many points this season. So all the credit in the world to Bama, and, they're going to have to retool next year, but they definitely should be the favorites going in. But I'm not ready to just crown them outright champions for next year.
Listen, I follow what you're saying, and I understand the preparation, and Ryan Day could have definitely did a better job for Ohio State to being prepared for the game. I don't know how much preparation you can do when the talent disparity, to me, is what stood out. Devontae Smith looked like he was running around, and there was nobody going to stick him.
When I say that, though, I more so meant on the offensive end. I thought like you said, they were moving the ball pretty well. It just seemed like they couldn't string enough plays together to punch it into the end zone.
Yeah, but Alabama plays defense too. And the thing is, I think scoring at 17 points at the half, right? It was 38-17.
Yep.
35-17.
35-17
at the half. 17 points, and then they scored a touchdown early in the third quarter after getting that huge stop. They were right back in the game, 35-24, but they couldn't stop them. That was it.
Absolutely. But for me, I saw Justin Fields leave some throws out there on the field, and I'm not going to blame Justin Fields because that's just not what happened there. We didn't lose that game because of Justin Fields. Bama was the better team, and they outperformed us. But I just thought we left some plays on the field, and that game could have been closer than what the final score was.
The guy that's been calling it all year, Bama being the best team in college football, Scholastic Shally. Give us your thoughts on the game because it basically went how you said it would.
I think Cottrell hit on some of it. I think the one thing with Alabama, and we've talked about it numerous times on the show, all of us, was their efficiency. They do what they want on offense. The big concern for all of us was how was Ohio State's secondary going to play, and you got your answer. They just don't make mistakes. They execute better than anybody in the country. And then when you couple that in with having the best kids on the field, that's just, I don't care who you are, you're just not going to stop it. I don't think Ohio State was unprepared. I just think all of their, the little weaknesses they do have were exploited. Sarkisian schemed very well to get him matchups on anybody he wanted across the board. We keep seeing that one play, he got him matched up with Tough Borland on a slant across the field. That's great. That's great play calling, but at the same time, it's, I don't know what you want Borland to do there. I think the biggest surprise for me, though, was I think Ohio State's defensive line played pretty well. They really weren't in Mac's face all night, but they were enough of a nuisance. We knew the secondary was going to struggle, and they did. For me, it was their linebackers. That front seven was pretty solid all year round, and they were not on Monday night. They did not have a good game at all. I do think Trey Sermon getting hurt the second play of the game had a little factor into it. I feel like Day went away from the run kind of right away. And I do think he was very conservative. I've even applauded him throughout the year. He's a very aggressive coach and likes to put his foot on the gas. And, you watched him play Clemson. They were throwing the ball downfield all night. And they were very selective and, very conservative with challenging Alabama down the field, which surprises me, just because, you saw Florida have success with it. They have Olave is one of the best deep ball kids in the country, and they didn't really give him any chances, especially to get back in the game. I thought they would be more aggressive, and they weren't. My last point, Justin Fields is definitely not 100%, and he wasn't anywhere close to it.
That was obvious.
It was very obvious. As soon as he got hit, you could see it. He that kid was in a lot of pain. I give him credit for gutting it out. I'm sure he was they shot him up with all the happy juice before the game, but he definitely was not 100%. And it definitely affected. They looked a little disorganized and just didn't look comfortable on the offensive side of the ball. The defensive side wasn't going to matter. Alabama was just that good, and that was that's the praise they got all year. They execute.
I think Bama could have scored 70.
I said that.
You did.
And
that's where I took it from. I think Bama could have scored 70 in that game if they needed to.
They could have.
They really took their foot off the gas.
Well,
and that says something, scoring 52.
Yeah, and that's that's with the Heisman Trophy winner only playing half the game.
Yeah. And with Waddle not really nowhere near 100%.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine if Devontae Smith doesn't get hurt and Waddle is at full throttle? Maybe it's 100.
It's 70 all
Just
day.
kidding, but
no, I mean, but you're really not. I mean, that's one of those things where if Ohio State keeps pushing them and they have to keep scoring, there's no doubt in my mind they score 70 in that game. None.
Well, I do agree with that. Ohio State also did have some players out, so I don't want to just use players that didn't play as a thing to say they would have ran the score up. Because I think if Ohio State has Trey Sermon back there and they have they're missing 2 D linemen, they're missing Tyreek Smith and one of their D tackles. So I don't think that's necessarily fair to just say certain people weren't playing, they would have ran the score up more because there were injuries and COVID.
Well, that's fair, but
sides.
if both teams at full strength, I think that Bama was missing a lot more key components than Ohio State was.
Yeah, like Trey Sermon doesn't factor into them stopping Alabama, and the other 2 guys aren't going to stop Devontae Smith, who had 215 yards receiving in the first half.
That's my point. If Devontae Smith plays the entire game and Waddle's 100%, and that's all I ask for. If both those players play and you have every Ohio State player that plays in the game, it's healthy. I think that Bama wins by more. And that's my only point.
I think Ohio State would have scored more.
That's possible with Sermon. Sermon definitely looked better than Master Teague.
Oh no, you definitely probably get up in the upper 30s. But again, there's no doubt in my mind that Alabama scores at least 2 more times.
Correct.
When they want to.
They stopped.
They absolutely they took their foot off the gas in the third quarter. And they got way more conservative.
With Sermon, they could have controlled more of the clock. So, I get what you guys are saying, but there's a lot of variables that could have went into the game.
So the question that everyone's asking, and we've put it on our Wire to Wire Facebook page, is this Bama team, the 20 Bama team, better than the 9? So last year, everyone said this LSU team is the best offense we've ever seen, the best overall team we have ever seen. They dominated the whole college football season. When are we ever going to see a dominant team like this ever again? We just had to wait 1 year. Alabama looked just as dominant this year. And the question comes to this. Who wins, the 19 LSU Tigers or the 20 Bama Crimson Tide? Full strength at full strength. What is your opinion? I'll start with Bill.
We started talking about this yesterday, and I had a take on it. And the more I've thought about it, I actually lean that way more now than I did yesterday. I think it's Bama. The more you watch that offense, as good as I don't want to say good because that's not doing him justice. As amazing as Burrow was last year in the championship game, Mac Jones, statistically wise, was actually better. Running games, and then when you break down, if you break down the skill positions between quarterback, running back, and wide receivers, like we were doing, it's all razor thin. I mean, you're splitting hairs.
I think
across
LSU's
the board.
Defense was better.
I think LSU's secondary is better. But then again, I mean, I can't think of the kid's name. He's really good, but he was a freshman last year.
The corner?
Yeah.
Stingley?
Yes. I would assume he comes out of next year. He's a first round pick. He's really good, but he was a freshman last year. I mean, I don't, it's.
You also had Simmons. You had Patrick Queen.
I think my big thing is I actually think up front Alabama's a little bit better. Back end LSU's definitely better. But the offense, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I remember watching LSU last year, and they were obviously really, really good. I watched Alabama Monday night and was in awe of that.
I was too.
Like
I was too. But I was also in awe last year when I watched Joe Burrow.
But last night or Monday night was different for me. Like that was like I was like this looks like practice. Like this is like varsity, and that's not a shot at Ohio State.
Could the competition have mattered? Last year's Clemson team maybe be better than this year's Ohio State.
See, you would say that, but then if I feel like Clemson actually might have got beat worse Monday night than Ohio State did, and I really mean that.
Maybe this Clemson. I'm talking about last year's Clemson. Because that's the argument. Last year's Clemson played against them.
I mean, you throw a third team in, it gets really tough.
I follow. So I get it. You have Bama, and what would be your fantasy score prediction?
Oh, again, I said whoever ends up with the ball last is going to win that game if it's a one possession game. I mean, if you're...
I think you had a 56-52.
I said 56-52 Alabama.
That's an incredible game.
Yeah.
I think people would pay serious money to watch. I would pay pay-per-view to watch that.
I would as well.
College Cottrell, what would your breakdown of that game be?
So I kind of said it yesterday. I think that the LSU offense is slightly better as a whole. I do think that in certain areas, of course, that Alabama has the better players. Like I'm going to take Najee Harris over, Edwards-Helaire. And at the receiver position, I'm going to take Devonta Smith in college over Jamar Chase or even, Terrence Marshall and, some of their other guys that they had out there.
Jefferson?
Justin Jefferson as well, just in college. But my thing is like you said, Gene, that LSU defense is a lot better than what Ohio State's defense is this year. And that LSU defense had a lot of guys go pro. So you have Grant Delpit, who's in the league right now. You have Patrick Queen, who's also there. You got Jacob Phillips, another linebacker that's there. But they had a lot of talent there.
Isaiah Simmons, best player. You didn't mention him. Yeah.
Isaiah Simmons was in Clemson.
Oh, I'm sorry. I got...
But, LSU just had a lot of great players on defense. And so I would lean towards LSU just because I think their defense is a little bit better. And I just feel like that LSU team they wouldn't have rolled, but they would have been very hard to stop. I just think they would have scored more points. Somewhere like 56-46 LSU.
Okay. So I did the breakdown offensively, and I broke that down. I would take Harris over Edwards-Helaire. I'm taking LSU's. I think LSU's wide receivers are just an even match with Bama's. I think the 20 Bama team and the 19 LSU team, that's a wash. I mean, we've seen what Justin Jefferson did in the league, and if you watch 19 LSU, he wasn't the best receiver on the team. Jamar Chase was. I mean, so like when you go through that, how do you make that argument against it? Like Justin Jefferson had the greatest rookie year for receivers.
But you're arguing what he's doing in the pros now.
Yeah, justin Jefferson.
That's fair. Justin Jefferson had 1,100 yards last year.
Right, but you're going off that, not what he did in the
Jamar
league.
Chase had 1,400 yards.
Right, but you're still basing it off what they did in college, not what they turned into in the pros.
I get it. It's Kevin Davis on that wire line being a troll. Bama is overrated. I think if they run it back, Ohio State wins. He's just trolling.
Cottrell won't even say that, so you're high.
But my point being is I think that all right, so just position for position, and that's my only way of doing this. The X factor is Nick Saban. The X factor is Nick Saban. And I think that position for position, LSU is slightly better. 50-49. 50-49 LSU. But I think if the game's that close, I think Nick Saban might design a way to win the game. I'm so coin flipped on the game. I would pay pay-per-view to watch that game.
Listen, I don't think any of us, whatever notion we have of watching that game, who we think was going to win, I don't think anybody would be surprised if the other team won.
Correct.
My thing is, and I look back at it too, they almost beat them in 19. It's 46-41, I believe. I think a year older, and obviously this team this year was better than it was last year for Alabama. I think all them as seniors, beats.
It wasn't that game, though, in Alabama, not at a...
No, I think it was in LSU, actually.
And Tua played. No, I believe it was in Tuscaloosa.
Was it?
Yeah. So people on the wire line, I want you to comment in, and Mike, if you don't mind throwing them up there, I would love to know what your opinion is and game scores, and we can kind of get those throughout the show if you want. I don't mind. Just throw it in there, and Mike will put it up on the board, and we can look at it. I think it would be so interesting to watch, though. Is there any more comments that you guys have on that specific game? Because I think it'd be fun, but it's mythological.
That's why we need EA Sports to start making NCAA football again.
Yeah, it'd be great. Run it back.
Because you could actually simulate it. You could at least simulate it.
It'd be fun to watch. I'd watch the simulation.
I would too.
That would be fun.
Those are the things in a crazy world you wish could happen. because I mean, like you said with Jefferson and Burrow, and Delpit's having a pretty good year. Some of those guys going in the league, you see how they're progressing and how they actually develop. So to have them actually in college and all playing against each other, it would be fun. But it would be a hell of a game. I mean, it would definitely be, everything that everybody wants to see.
All right, so Mike, if you don't mind, we're going to move on to the next segment. Mike, if you don't mind throwing up the Venmo and the picture of the merch that we have. So here's what we have the merchandise that's going on sale, and it's going on sale right now. We create the Venmo page. That's the hoodie, Scud Sports. We're going to do it in black, not in gray. We can work a second color or third color in after a little bit, but that's the dry fit shirt that's on the screen. So that'll also be on the Facebook page. We are going to have our Venmo open as of today for any merch that you'd like to order. You can message me or you can put it in the Venmo notes what specifically you're looking for. I have an interest list. I'll be reaching out to you guys. Anybody's Venmo I receive by Friday at noon, it's at Wire to Wire Sports. That's our Venmo. Very simple. Anybody's Venmo I receive by Friday at noon will be part of the first order. And then I'll just keep ordering Friday at noon. So Friday at noon will be like our cutoff for each week. It's about 2-week turnaround right now. That's for us to get everything done and to get it to you. So we're going to try to get it to you within those 2 weeks. Which is pretty quick for, personalized. We actually got really good material with this. We definitely, we want to, you can speak to it a little bit more. The, what is it called? The dye.
They're full dyes, so they're very comfortable. If you've seen anybody wear like softball hoodies, around the way or anything like that, it's going to be that type of material. They look really nice. They're comfortable. They're not too heavy, but they're not thin. So you can wear them pretty much in any weather. The other good thing is they're local guys. I mean, so we're not going to be waiting on stuff to ship for a week or anything like that. And between where the three of us all live and work. We'll make sure we meet up with you guys, and no matter where you are, we'll get your gear in your hands as soon as we can. So
the prices, Eric Rosenblum asked for the prices. It's $25 for a dry fit and $40 for a hoodie. $25 for a dry fit and $40 for a hoodie, and that we'll work on everything. If you're local, we'll get it to you without any shipping cost. If you're if you want to order our wire to wire stuff, to New York or to other places that listen to us around the country, just plus shipping, and we'll get it shipped at the cheapest possible cost. We're not trying to make any profit on the shipping at all.
Like you said, though, when you order and you send the money through Venmo, make sure you put in there exactly what you're ordering and your sizes. That makes it's less of a chance of a mix up for us. So
100%. All right, so we'll get off our Venmo stuff and we'll get back onto the NFL divisional games. I could not, I could not be less excited about this divisional round, and I'm serious. And I told Cottrell and Bill this through text when we were texting during the games, and I just want to let everybody know, the Seattle Seahawks ruined what this divisional weekend could have been. We could have had, I'm serious, we could have had Russell Wilson at Drew Brees in New Orleans, which would have been a phenomenal game to watch. And we could have had, which would have been a game that I think everybody wants, would have been Tom Brady at Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau Field. We still can get that game. It can still happen. I'm going to root for it because that's what I want. My entire last 25 years of watching sports, 15, 20, whatever, 20 years of watching sports, the argument's been who's better? Tom Brady, who wins more with Bill Belichick in the rings, or Aaron Rodgers, who's more arm talent and can put the ball anywhere he wants to? And that's the argument. Who's better? It was Manning to Brady, then it was Brady to Rodgers. I want to watch that game, and I know that they're both older, but I feel like that people at home would love to have seen that, and I think the Seattle Seahawks ruined that for everyone. That's my point there. Any comments on that? Cottrell disagrees. He disagrees.
I do.
I mean, because Seattle ruined my parlay.
Now, see, that's valid. But we're still getting Breeze and Brady, the trilogy in New Orleans. And we're getting Aaron Rodgers against the best defense in the NFL this year.
Okay.
So
I don't think
say
either
I'm mad
game,
about it.
I think one of the games might be good. I hope Tampa shows up this time. The last time they played, they got the doors kicked in. I don't think the Green Bay LA game's that good, but we'll see. I guess we'll see. I think the AFC.
I think the AFC games are good. I think the NFC games are going to be boring.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Kind of like, last weekend Saturday was great, and then Sunday was kind of a letdown. And I think Sunday, I was actually to some degree more excited about Sunday than I was Saturday, and then Saturday ended up being the better day. The Baltimore-Tennessee game, we were talking about this too. Like, it was good. It was a good game. It just didn't end up being anything we thought it was going to be. And then the Seattle game was almost unwatchable. And then, I don't know. The Pittsburgh-Cleveland game was exciting. It was just a debacle of a football game. I don't even know how to describe it.
But the third game on Saturday was the Washington football team versus the Buccaneers, and I don't know who had Washington plus 8.5 there. Just kidding.
I don't know. Chase Young bet on the Bucks.
He did. Yeah, listen, Chase Young did not have his best performance. I just sang the guy's praises. He calls out the GOAT, and then what does he end up doing?
Can't poke the GOAT, bro.
It's unbelievable.
Nothing.
All right, so let's break down these games, and we kind of do a recap as we do it because a lot of these teams played last week. Bucks at Saints is the first one we're going to open up with. It's the trilogy. We've talked about this game twice this year. The Bucks have burned me the second time when I had Tampa at home. You guys, all right, so what about this game makes you feel like it'll be any different than what happened at Tampa Bay? I don't think it's going to be a blowout like it was in Tampa Bay. But what about this game makes you feel like Tampa is going to win the football game?
For me, it's easy. It's one thing. It's Antonio Brown.
He played versus.
He was there for like 4 days.
I get it.
Yeah, that was like his first. Yeah.
Yeah. I am on the same boat as you though. I think New Orleans is going to win the game. I read some things, this week. Obviously, like doing prep for the game. They're 1-1 against 500 teams. They're 9-0, I think, against losing teams, and they're 1-4 against winning teams. Tampa Bay, got to 11-5. And to their credit, you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat in the NFL, and they did that. Their only win this year was the Green Bay game, and I think that was more of an anomaly, to be honest. I do think it'll be a better game. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. They're getting Devin White back. The defense should be full strength. And Antonio Brown is fully integrated into that offense now. So he's going to cause a little bit of problems. Mike Evans, I think we all agree, looked way better than we thought he was going to last week. So I guess he's not as banged up as we thought he was. So they're going to be at full strength. You're going to have the three of them, and you're going to have Gronk, and I don't think Ronald Jones is going to play. So you're probably going to get a dose of Fournette, who
doesn't catch the ball in the backfield anywhere near Rojo.
He doesn't catch the ball anywhere.
Yeah, you're right. I was just trying to be nice.
So that hurts a little bit. I'm like you, dude. Especially this time of year, I just want good games. So I do think it's going to be a good game. I just think New Orleans is going to,
Tampa's got the public fooled again, man. I was looking at the action. I use I love fading the public. If you guys have noticed, I love fading what the public thinks is going to happen. 55% of money right now is on Tampa Bay.
That's not like overwhelming though.
No, but how?
Tom Brady, that's how.
I guess that's the only thing you're looking at. He's got the public fooled again. I think that.
Well, you can't like I get what you're saying, and I'm with you. I think New Orleans is going to win the game, but it is, if you do get into your head, it's very hard to consciously put money against him with his track record.
It's fair. It's not New England. It's not Bill Belichick.
No, I get it.
And I think that your point that you made earlier is exactly the point I was going to bring up. They haven't, outside Rodgers early, when it was like game 4 of their regular season, they didn't beat anybody.
No, they didn't.
And a lot of those games that they beat teams that were bad football teams, they were losing 17-0 to Carolina. They were losing to New York. At New York. New York should have beat them on the Monday Night Football.
Well, even a couple weeks ago, they were getting smoked by Atlanta.
And that's my point. It's like, yes, they've won the games they're supposed to win. I'm going to be clear when I say this. I don't see. Look, I wouldn't mind seeing Brady at Rodgers at Lambeau Field next week. I just don't see how it's going to happen. I think you're going to see New Orleans struggle at Lambeau, and Green Bay is going to ride to the Super Bowl.
What's the better story, though? Is the better story Brady versus Rodgers, or is it Bree? Like, it's pretty much came out this week that he's done. So
Who, Breeze?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
good.
Yeah.
He can't throw the ball downfield.
Listen, I get it, but is the better story Brady going up there to Green Bay, or is it Breeze having, possibly his last game? If he wins, he gets to the Super Bowl. What's the better story next week? To me, it's Brady, but
I think it's Brady. I think that the Lambeau Field and that whole setup is Brady versus Rodgers, Lambeau. Dude, can you imagine the promo for that?
That's definitely the prime time game next week.
I don't think it's that big of a deal right now, just because we know Brady's coming back for at least one more year. So even if we don't get it this year, there's a possibility we can still get it next year. And I think the hype build up in that, especially if that's Tom Brady's last game or a game to go to the Super Bowl to end Tom Brady's career.
It will end
I
his
think
career.
that would be the bigger
If
story.
he plays at Lambeau Field versus Aaron Rodgers, that will be the last game he plays next year, and that will be the end of his career. You don't want that. You don't want that smoke that A-Rod's going to have next year. He's just the arm talent. Listen, earlier, 5 years ago, 8 years ago in Brady's career, it's a different story. Brady's not the same quarterback he was.
Tom Brady's never had elite arm talent, ever.
You don't need elite arm talent. He just doesn't have.
No, he just wins.
Yeah, he doesn't.
But he has the horses though
like
that can make it work though. Like, even if he doesn't get it perfectly on the money, you got 3 guys who can go out there and make a play for the ball.
Absolutely, not winning at Lambeau.
Like,
he's not doing it.
Listen.
I'm going to bring it back to this game. I just feel like the Saints are going to. I think it's going to be a relatively close game. I think the Saints pull away towards the end. They win by 13 points. Okay. You know how John Payton is. He's going to score a touchdown late in the game just to make sure the game is on ice. And I just don't see Tom at that point. Tom has shown some qualities towards the end of a game that's not going his way that I don't necessarily care for. So I just think if the game's out of hand, Tom's not going to fight the way that we're used to seeing him.
I'll make one quick comment on that. That's one of the things that everyone criticizes Tom Brady for, and I've said something about it when I'm not shaking hands. I don't hate that. I don't hate that he's that competitive that he hates losing that much. I don't hate that.
I hate it because there's this double standard with it. So I saw
get it.
After
it is.
the Titans-Ravens games, Lamar Jackson got a lot of heat for not shaking the Titans' hands, even though we all know how that first game ended between them.
So you hate it because of the double standard. I didn't hate either situation of it. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think the fact that he's won 6 rings, couldn't shake a guy's hand after he lost the Super Bowl. I get that. I understand. But, I don't hate that my starting quarterback is that angry that he just storms off the field because he lost a football game. I want my players to care that much. I just want to give that.
No, I get that.
You can be that angry. It's still a respect thing, though.
Trust me, I get it.
Everybody that lost the Super Bowl to him, I'm sure they were just as pissed off. They just lost the Super Bowl. They walk across the field and shook his hand.
I just don't hate it. I don't agree with it. I think he should still do it. I just don't hate it. I don't make as big of a deal as most people do about it. Yeah, so we all have the Saints in that game.
Yep.
Let's go on a fun game, and Browns at Chiefs. We're going to go back and forth, AFC, NFC. Browns at Chiefs. It's a 10-point spread. Katra, I'll start with you. What are the chances that Cleveland can pull this off? Slim or none?
I'm not even going to go with either of those, but okay. I'm not going to say Cleveland has a great chance to win the game, but the fact that once again no one's picking them this week. We saw Sammy Watkins running his mouth on Twitter, just adding more fuel to the fire, and I just don't think that this Browns team is the team that should be taken lightly, just because they're one of the hottest teams in football. I mean, they had that loss to the Jets, and you could say what you want about them struggling the last game of the year, but I definitely believe that Kevin Stefanski was holding some things back in that game because he knew that he was going to have to face the Pittsburgh Steelers yet again the following week. So we saw what happened, the next week in the playoffs. With that Kansas City Chiefs team, though, their offense is incredible, and we all know that. And the Browns' weak link of their team is definitely their secondary. But it's big getting Denzel Ward back, getting Kevin Johnson back, and getting your head coach back. I definitely think it's going to be a track meet. I told you guys I think it's going to be high scoring yet again, even if it is cold in Kansas City. this is a game that's really going to come down to how well that the Browns can, I think, control the possession. So if we get into a situation how it was last year where Houston went up 24 points early, I don't think we're going to get up that big early. But if we get up, I think we could see Kevin Stefanski and that offense get a lot more methodical in running the ball and just burning some clock and playing the possession game with the Chiefs, because that's just not how they play. They're all fast tempo. They're trying to get the deep play. So I definitely don't think it's impossible to win. I definitely think they cover. I'm not going to say that they win, but I definitely think they cover.
Audio Williams on the wire line just put up that it's definitely possible with Denzel Ward active. I love your support. I love your Cleveland Browns support there. It's not. I'm sorry. It's not. Listen, I appreciate the fact that you're a fan, and I would want fans like Cottrell, like Audio, like Tiny. I want you to believe that your team has an opportunity. I'm telling you, as an unbiased person that watches the game, they don't. And
to be fair, though, you also told me that earlier this year when you told me they wouldn't win a playoff game.
I did, and I will be wearing a Browns jersey next week because of that. I'm glad they ran into senior citizen Ben Roethlisberger, who turned the ball over 4 times in the game. But listen, they're going to go into Kansas City this week, and it's one of those things that Andy Reid's like 23-5 off a bye, which is absolutely unbelievable. You give them an extra week to prepare. If they start slow, they have Patrick Mahomes. If they don't start slow, it's going to be a boat race. I hope, for the sake of watching the football game, that Cleveland gets up 10 points. I really do. And I think that like a slight hedge towards like Cleveland first half is an okay bet for someone out there. But Kansas City is winning this football game. They're winning the game. Whether it be by 10, by 3, or by 17, Kansas City is winning the football game. I'm going out on a ledge and taking a 10-point favorite to win. I know, it's pretty wild. But what do you think? What are the odds that Cleveland wins this football game at Kansas City versus Andy Reid off a bye versus the best quarterback in the NFL? Off the emotional high of beating Pittsburgh, beating Big Brother. Listen, before Bill responds, let me just say, I want to give everybody in Cleveland like the biggest round of applause. You don't know this, but these two do. Cottrell, what was my biggest bet this week?
That the Browns would win outright.
I took Browns money line, and that hurt me to do that because I said 7 weeks ago they wouldn't win a playoff game. I didn't expect them to be playing at Pittsburgh, but I took Browns money line. I hit it on a parlay for like $1,400. Trust me, I'm a Browns fan right now. I'm good with wearing a Denzel jersey next week. I like the football team. I like where they're headed. And let me just give you guys a little bit of ray of sunshine. They're going to be a really good football team for the next 5 years. I actually think next year they compete for the division, if not win it. I don't think Pittsburgh's got a snowball's chance in hell. I think it's them and Baltimore for the next 5 years.
Agreed.
Bill, what's your take on the game? Did the Browns have a shot?
I think they do, actually.
Okay. I love it.
Let's go, Bill.
I will tell you, matchup-wise, this is not a good matchup for Kansas City, and I'll tell you why. Cleveland's defense is good enough that you're not going to get those 45-second drives where you go down the field and score. I don't see that, especially with Ward playing. This kind of gets back to Cottrell's point. What they do really well on offense is what Kansas City is not good at stopping, which is running the football. If you limit the amount of times that Patrick Mahomes has the ball in his hands and you get it into a late fourth quarter, you got a shot. Do I think they're going to win? No. I think a 10-point spread in that game is ludicrous to me. When it came out, I was shocked it was double digits. Like, shocked. I didn't think it was going to be anywhere near that. Again, Andy Reid coming off a bye is tough. I mean, you can say what you want. His teams come out super well prepared after byes. I would say if you're a Browns fan, don't panic after the first 2 drives because Kansas City's probably going to look really good because it's all going to be scripted. It's going to be scripted to what Andy saw in film that he's been watching for 2 weeks now. I would say after that, I think it gets really
let me interrupt you.
It gets interesting.
Let me interrupt you for 1 second. You said if you're a Browns fan, don't panic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling you, Bill, I'll put everything on it. If Kansas City gets up 10 points or 14 points early on the first 2 drives, that game is over.
I disagree.
Over. That game's not going to be close.
You could say it's over because Kansas City's going to win, and you're probably going to be right with that. I I mean, listen,
it doesn't take away from it being a good game.
Yeah,
I want it to be a good game,
and honestly,
I really do.
You know, because of Cottrell, I've obviously paid way more attention to the Browns this year than obviously I normally would.
I'm starting to like them.
Yeah,
I'm starting to enjoy rooting for them.
I mean, I'm not gonna root for them, but
I root for them. I do. I rooted for him last week. I wanted to be wrong.
I root for Cottrell. I don't root for the Browns.
We all love Cottrell.
I appreciate it.
Like Baker and Chubb and all, like they're not just going to roll over if they're down 14. Like that's the one thing that team will not do. And I think again,
just gets them out of the run game. That's my point.
I don't think if it's early, it does. If we're going to the fourth quarter and they're up by 7 and then Kansas City scores, then it gets a little different because they're like, all right, we need the ball back at least twice. We need 2 stops. Then you have to come out of what you want to do because you're against the clock. If you're down 14-0 after 8 minutes of the first quarter, that's not panic mode.
I think the Texans' blueprint and starting, like the start of the game, is what Cleveland needs to keep this game close. I think they need to start hot. I think they need to catch Patrick Mahomes in a situation where a year ago, and I'm hoping he learned from it, but a year ago that team started off so sluggish, and he's missed the last 2 games because they sat him week 17. Then he has the bye week. If they start that sluggish, it's going to be a tougher hole to come out of because Cleveland can run the football.
Well, it's tougher, too, because Houston's defense stinks, and they weren't much better last year. Cleveland has a defense.
Cleveland's defense at home is a million times better than it is on the road.
But it's still a playable defense on the road.
Fair.
To your point being earlier, I just feel like, you gave me the stats on what Pat Mahomes is like in the colder games. And so if it comes down to the fact that Patrick Mahomes can't throw the ball how we're used to seeing him, and it comes down to running the ball and like what team can run the ball better, I would even give the Browns the advantage there.
That's fair, and just trust me, you're absolutely correct. We had a really good conversation. It's going to be something we talk about on our later show, is about quarterbacks that get drafted from like warm weather locations like Alabama, Cal, whatever, and go to cold weather situations. There's only been one that's been successful in the last 20 years, Aaron Rodgers. Most of them are failures, and we'll get into that in a different show. But my point being is, Pat Mahomes playing in a cold, statistically, his numbers are way less. The game that stands out to me the most is the home game he played against the Chargers. They had where he hit the wire on the deep throw, and the Chargers beat him, and they almost lost the 1 seed. That game stands out to me the most. He looked awful in it. He's got such strong arm talent, like such a strong arm. He's second to only Josh Allen in the league, in my opinion, as far as arm strength. But yet he just doesn't seem to have that same zip on the ball when it's cold.
Well, listen, I mean, you're talking about like weather at that point too, though. I mean, Kansas City gets very cold in the winter. If you're throwing into a 30-mile-per-hour wind, I don't care who you are. The football is not designed to go through that very quickly.
I agree.
I don't think that's a knock on Mahomes. I mean,
but people like Brady who don't have the arm talent, people like Matt Stafford and Josh Allen.
Matt Stafford has a very good arm. Matt Stafford is still top.
No.
6
people
or 7.
Let me finish my point.
Right,
people like Brady who doesn't have the arm talent. People like Matt Stafford and Josh Allen who do look surprisingly really good in cold weather. The ball still keeps the zip regardless of how cold it is. Josh Allen's ball is just as zip in 4-degree weather than it is when it's 70. That was my point.
Yeah,
Brady doesn't have the arm talent, but he still finds a way to get that. Maybe it's because he deflates them.
It could be that. I mean, he played in it for 4 years at Michigan.
Yeah,
too,
correct.
So,
That's my cold weather area.
Yeah, I think playing in cold weather versus cold and wind are 2 different things. That goes into a lot of arm strength thing. It goes into the size of your hand at that point. Some guys, have no problem still gripping the ball very firm, even if it's cold. Like they have no problem. Other guys have to go to a glove. Like Brady has to go to a glove if it's cold. Rodgers doesn't. Rodgers is out there bare hand. Allen's bare hand.
Did you hear Patrick Mahomes' comments on how he grips a football? He palms the football.
Yeah.
Most players don't.
Most players can't.
Correct, but most players don't do that. Like Rodgers says, he barely touches the football. He has just his fingertips on the ball.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that matters when a quarterback that palms the football. It's like you're almost decompressing the ball a little bit.
It's no different than like when you're like holding.
What are we talking about?
It's no different. It's no different than like when you're holding a bat when you're swinging. Like
correct.
your natural reaction is if you're going to swing harder, is to grip it tighter so it doesn't come out of your hands. Whereas in reality, the lighter you grip it, the more fluid your swing is, and you hit the ball further. It's the same concept. Mahomes is really good. And I think he got used to it in college, snapping the ball and throwing it right away. He's one of those newer school guys that doesn't even have to hold the ball by the laces, especially for quick throws. Like, however it falls in his hands when he catches a snap, he'll just throw it. Rodgers is more of a traditional guy. Allen's probably closer to Rodgers. But it does matter because, listen, I mean, for every one of these guys, you have a Drew Brees who notoriously sucks outside in the winter.
Which is why I really don't like to see Brees at Lambeau next week. But regardless, we'll get into that.
I mean, I'm with you on that. I'd rather see Brady Rodgers, but, I mean, I don't think we're going to.
What's your prediction on Browns-Chiefs score-wise?
I'll go like 31-24.
How about you, Cottrell?
And
I'm assuming Chiefs. Yeah.
34 Chiefs.
That's a lot.
He picked the Chiefs though. 38-34. I'm gonna go 42-24 Chiefs. I think they cover. That's not by a crazy amount. I don't think they blow the doors off.
So is this the end of official like Homer Simpson now? Like, are we done?
No, I mean,
after Ohio State lost,
Ohio State
it's like a little wind out of his sails.
It wasn't even that. I thought Ohio State could compete for sure, and I thought it was going to be a coin flip, and it wasn't. Bama was just a better team.
Yep.
I think with this Chiefs team, Gene, like you said, the Browns are coming off this emotional high. It's their first time being good in 18 years. So even I'm not big on moral victories. I said that weeks before, but winning your first playoff game for the first time since 1994 it's big, and I don't want to accept it. I'll be rooting for the Browns, of course, but if we lose to the reigning Super Bowl champions by 4 points, I can't be mad because I know we're going in the right direction.
Get used to it. They're going to be good for the next 5 years. The team's built right. The team is built right with the right head coach. Get used to it. They're going to be good.
And the right general managers.
Yes, I agree 100%. I agree 100%. Let's move on. Rams at Packers, in my opinion, is the worst game of the week.
I agree.
And I don't know what the public, I don't know what Vegas is seeing that I'm not. The public's on 60% on the Packers, and the line's moving down. So it's like one of those scary games like the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game last week where the public was all over Pittsburgh, but the line kept moving towards Cleveland. I don't know what I'm missing. I look at that game, and I think it's going to be a whitewash. And I understand how good the Rams' defense is. I like Packers by 21. I really do.
Jesus.
I don't know what I'm missing, but I really think the Packers jump on them early, get up on them. Rodgers is really good to start a game, drives them down, scores a touchdown or two, and Jared Goff's not bringing you back. He's not. He's just not doing it.
Are they expecting? Is there weather in that game possibly?
Probably.
Well, I mean that would make a difference. I mean if it's snowing and you can't throw the ball, I mean that is decidedly.
Rodgers can throw the ball in the biggest blizzard of all time.
That's true, and it's true, and it's not true. I mean, it's again that tilts the game towards LA a little bit. So I mean, I'll look, when Cottrell's going.
Goff's 1-5 in cold weather games on the road.
Oh well, listen. I mean, the dude's thumb has screws in it. So
exactly.
you talk about like bad weather. Like, there's no way his hand feels good in that game if it's cold like that.
Even in the game last week, they didn't win because Jared Goff played great. They won because their defense played well, and I think that can happen again this week. Like, I understand how good Aaron Rodgers is, and I'm all for, Devontae Adams being in the tier 1 group of wide receivers, but Jalen Ramsey is on the other side of the field. Like, seeing what he's done to the number 1 receivers all season is just mind-blowing to me, and the fact that he's going to probably stick Adams pretty much the whole game. I understand Green Bay's O-line is pretty solid. I know they got one injury on the front. But Aaron Donald, it doesn't matter who's in front of him. He's going to cause havoc. I'm not saying that he's going to have 5 sacks, but you're going to feel his presence.
He's hurt.
I get it. But, I mean, I'll take Aaron Donald at 80% over
Is he 80 is the question. I mean, that's...
Speaking of the Packers offensive line, give a quick shout-out to Packers right guard Lucas Patrick, cousin of... couple friends of mine, Buddy and Tommy Lucas. big shout out to that guy. You're talking about an undrafted guy out of Duke that that wasn't supposed to make the team, that built his way up. He's now starting right guard, and he finished like 6th or 7th in Pro Football Focus as far as right guards. And so I just wanted to give him a quick shout out because he's an awesome kid, and everything I hear about him from Buddy and Tommy is great. So shout out to Lucas Patrick. And if you ever want to see something really funny, Google "You Got Lucased." It's like You Got Mossed, but a Green Bay like Midwest thing about like an offensive lineman and pancaking people. Just a hard-working kid, brings his lunch pail. I'll get off that, but back to Rams Packers.
It's I don't know. That is the most predictable game of the weekend for me. I just don't see. I think the Rams won, kind of like Charles said. I think the Rams won, and I think it was more their defense. And how awful did Seattle play? Like, how awful did they look? There's nothing in me that inspires me to say Goff is going up there and winning that game. Like, none.
He's not.
There's nothing.
He's not.
Donald is absolutely hurt. I think he's absolutely going to play. I think you'll see really early what you're going to get out of him. Green Bay does have a good offensive line. So I don't think it's going to be. If he was 100%, he still makes an impact play here and there. I just don't know what you're getting out of him. It's a rib injury. Again, if you're a lineman, you're stretching that area of your body almost every single play.
I actually have a way for the Rams to win the game. I just thought of it.
Green Bay doesn't show up.
Aaron Donald or somebody hurts Aaron Rodgers.
It could. I mean, he's a little fragile. I mean, it could happen.
Got no collarbone.
Yeah, he doesn't like being tackled.
No, not at all.
Even a little bit.
All right, so give me a score prediction, Control.
I'll go 27-24 Packers.
Ooh,
too close. You?
I'm like 27-14.
31-13 Packers.
Yeah, it's either one. Yeah.
31-13.
I feel, Gene, I told you this earlier this week. I feel about that game how you felt about Washington's defense going up against Tom Brady.
That's fair.
What was that last comment that was just up there?
Mike, throw that last comment up. Joseph Jeffrey. Browns have a better Browns have a better chance to beat the Chiefs than the Rams beating the Packers.
I agree with that.
It's fair. I think they're both blowouts, but not blowouts, but not really great games.
I think Baker's gonna ball out.
I hope so. I really like watching the Browns, but Rams are gonna get. I can't say that. All right, the game of the week. I think this is the game of the week, so it's the game of the week. Baltimore at Buffalo.
In case you're wondering how the show works.
It's a 2-point spread. It's Lamar Jackson going up to Orchard Park to play against Bills Mafia and Josh Allen. It's a rematch of last year's game. They played up in Buffalo. It was a lot better game than most people expected. Baltimore won the game 18-10. Really good football game. This year, they're going to play again in Orchard Park, and a lot of people are already on the Baltimore Ravens, and the Baltimore Ravens are leading the public bet. It's it started at 3, it went down to 2.5 quickly, and now it's at 2 and 2.5 no matter where you go. The Buffalo Bills didn't really have very awe-inspiring performance versus the Colts. I give a lot of that to Frank Wright for having that team prepared. What is your take on this game, Bill?
I'm all in on Buffalo. And I think they win by a touchdown or more. I don't think you're giving Indy enough credit. They're a top 10 team in the NFL on defense and offense. Frank Reich kind of shot himself in the foot. I mean, Frank Reich was, possibly a possession away from winning that game. The fourth down that he went for it, that he shouldn't have. He should have put the points on the board. You're at least going to overtime then. But they have a very good defense. They have a very good defense. They have a very good defensive line. Which they kept Allen, a couple possessions that kept Allen in check. There was other possessions when he started to do what he wanted to do, and that they got him mobile and moved him out of the pocket. He went right down the field. Baltimore's defense is not as good as Indy's, and I think it's gonna be a higher scoring game than people think. But I really, really like Buffalo.
So Joseph Jeffers, if you don't mind going back a little bit, Joseph Jeffers has been all over the wire line. I got to give him a shout out. He said Ravens run over the Bills and squeak through. He's made his predictions on every game so far, so I'm interested to see how he does next week when we look at the comments. But thank you very much for hopping in on the wire line, Joseph Jeffers. Cottrell, what are your thoughts on the game?
I really think this is a team that the Buffalo Bills don't really want to play. Of course, they want to play them because it's a game to go to the AFC Championship. But I think they're running into the hottest team in the AFC right now. I mean, this is a team who was literally fighting for their playoff life pretty much the whole second half of the season. I know most of us at the show said that they weren't going to make the playoffs, and they ended up making the playoffs. And, I think it showed a lot that going into that game against Tennessee, that they were even 3-point favorites in that one, especially seeing how Tennessee, dominated the game last year. I understand a lot of the pieces were different on the teams, but just the fact that people had this much confidence in that Ravens team to pick them at 3 points on the road against that Tennessee team, I think says a lot. With that said, though, I really feel like, Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs is a great connection. And I really feel like that team is, they're a great team. Honestly, any other year, probably if this game was 3-4 weeks ago, I might even go with Buffalo. But I think this Ravens team is determined. And, Josh Allen has a chip on his back, of course. But I think Lamar Jackson is a gamer, and he's going to do whatever it takes to win. Not saying that Josh Allen won't, but I just think Lamar Jackson is going to ultimately come out with the win.
I mean, Buffalo's on a longer winning streak than Baltimore is, and they're a Hail Mary away from winning like 10 in a row.
Which is I get that.
There's nobody hotter in the NFL than Buffalo right now. Nobody.
At the same time, though, Buffalo's playoff hopes and dreams weren't on the line. Like I guess they were playing for the division and they were playing for the 1 seed, but it's different when you have to play games with your back against the wall every single week and there's no margin for error.
Yeah, but every game right now is do or die. Nobody's not coming into a game playing desperate.
He's saying the Ravens have played the last 5 games do or die, so they're ready and prepared.
Teams run out of that eventually, too.
Here's my take on the game, and I would like to see Buffalo win the football game. I hope Buffalo wins the football game. When I break down the game and look at everything, the things that Baltimore is good at, Buffalo is not. The things that Buffalo is good at, Baltimore is also good at. So, like, when you break it down, Baltimore is really good in pass coverage. They have 2 really good cornerbacks. I think they can really slow down Stephon Diggs and the Buffalo pass defense. Where you can really kind of gouge Baltimore is you can gouge them with the run. Derrick Henry didn't, but more of speed backs really hurt Baltimore. The Browns did it in that Monday night game. I think that what ends up happening in the football game, I'm going to go to the other side of football, you go to Baltimore. Buffalo's secondary is probably the 2nd or 3rd best secondary in football. Their run defense isn't great. Their front 7 is not what they were supposed to be. Ed Oliver's taking a step back this year. You can run the ball in Buffalo. You can run it. And if Baltimore runs the football in Buffalo, all right, so if I had to pick the game, let me just do it as nice as I possibly can. 28-27 Buffalo. Very, very close game. I don't know. And it's the most exciting game to watch, and I have zero idea who's going to win. My heart tells me I want Buffalo to win, so I'm going to try to figure out a way for them to win the football game. But when I see, the funny thing is, I like the Ravens a lot too. Buffalo, the Ravens, and the Chiefs are 3 teams in the AFC that I follow and enjoy watching. I like Harbaugh, I like Reed, I like McDermott. They're all from the Philadelphia coaching tree. They're teams I follow, they're teams I like, and I just, if I had to pick a winner, I would say 28-27.
He could come into play, Eric, and if he does, then that's bad news for Buffalo.
Eric on the wire line said Tucker is the only thing that might save the Ravens.
Yeah, and it could. Again, if it's a tie game, Baltimore's got the ball with 30 seconds to go. If they get anywhere near the 40, then they're gonna run him out there, and there's a damn good chance he's gonna make it.
He's such a good kicker.
Right.
Cold
weather.
weather.
Missed the kick Sunday. I was shocked.
Yeah, he did.
It's like
He
a
came back and drilled the 51-yarder.
I know.
Yeah. But again, like 55-yard field goals in January are not, nothing to scoff at. And then, like Cottrell said, he came right back after that and nailed a 51-yarder.
I agree.
That was good from 65. So, that's just a funny conversation we'll probably have one day. But
you want to give me a score prediction for the game, Bill?
I'm like 27-24. I think it's a very, very close game.
How about you, Cottrell?
I was literally going to say 27-24, but I think Bill's going with the Bills, and I'm going with the Ravens.
Yeah.
All right. So we got our pick'em segment. Let's look at who we got for pick'em. Cottrell, do you have your two?
I do.
All right, let's hear it.
So the first game that I really like is the Saints covering that 3. I just feel like the Saints are a more talented team. And I said it earlier. I just feel like if the game's close at the end, even if it technically is out of reach, we know Sean Payton has the tendency to score if you call it running up the score, you could call it that. Or if it's just giving you some more cushion, I feel like Sean Payton's going to do that in that game, and they're going to ultimately win by, 10, 13 points towards the end of that. And then the other game that I like is the Browns covering that 10 points against the Chiefs. I think it's going to be a really close game. And, Gene, I told you this yesterday as well. The Chiefs haven't won a game by more than 6 points since week 8, and that was against the Jets. So they're keeping a lot of these games close. I definitely expect Andy Reid to come out hot because he's coming off of a bye, and he's had a lot of weeks to prepare for this Browns team. And but I just think it's going to be a close game at the end of the day.
I think the Kansas City Chiefs are this is a statistical anomaly. I don't know if it's ever happened, but they're a bottom 5 team against the spread this year, and they're the 1 seed. I don't think it's ever happened before.
Probably not, but I think the spreads on their games are crazier than they should be, and they're set that way because Vegas does not want to take a bath under the assumption they're going to smoke people every week. And then when it doesn't happen, then they don't cover, and people are like, "Oh, what the hell?" And I'm like, "That's just Vegas protecting their money."
Yeah. Give me your 2.
I also have New Orleans -3. I think we've talked about that game at length. I think it's a 1-possession game. I think they win by 6 or 7. And then I have Buffalo -2. I almost did take Cleveland. There is that like 15, 20, 25% chance they do get blown out, though. So I don't want to be stuck there holding that pick in my hand. So I'll go Buffalo -2 because, again, I think it's a field goal game either way.
That's fair. I have the Packers -6.5. I think the Packers are going to cover the 6.5. I might have egg on my face next week, but I really don't see a way for the Packers to lose this game, and I think they'll win by more than a touchdown. And then my second game is strictly me fading public. 80% of money right now is on the over in the New Orleans versus Tampa game. I really, really broke it down and tried to understand why so many people are on the over, and I understood it. It's 52. I think it goes under. I think it's going to be a lot low-scoring game, and I think Bruce Arians comes in with a game plan that means control the clock. Tom Brady's going to have a lot more shorter passes, move the sticks. I think there's going to be a lot more field goals, red zone stops in this game. I'll take the under 52 in Tampa versus NOLA. Remember, when the public's at 80% one way, it's almost a guarantee it goes the other. The only, actually, it's funny. Last week I was looking at every one of the public lost. They were 4-8 against the spread last week. The one game that the public won that was 74% was the over in Buffalo versus Indianapolis, and they scored 28 points in the fourth quarter to get it by 1 point. It was 50, and they ended up hitting 51. It was looking under that entire football game, and that's kind of sometimes you end up getting a late couple scores to make it a lot closer.
Here's a good question, because me and you were talking about this last week. You always have, like, you look at games, and as soon as you look at them, you always have like a gut reaction, and then, like, most people like talk themselves into that, which is normal. But we were talking about like our parlays last week, and we're like, how do these not hit? Because me and you almost had an identical parlay last week, and we're like, how does it not hit? And then we were both talking, like, laughing on the phone. We were like, there's always one game that doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, like that's like goes ass sideways.
Yeah,
and I don't think any of us would have picked the Seattle game last week.
No, because I didn't understand the quarterback situation, but the spread told us that, and we just didn't listen to it. The spread told us what was going to happen.
It didn't. I mean, nobody could have thought he was getting hurt in the first quarter coming out of the game. I mean, the only way I look at that is that told you all you need. Like, McVay had no plans on playing golf.
I know,
like none.
He has no confidence in him,
No.
and they just gave him that huge contract.
But so if you had to pick one game this week out of the 4, what do you think it would be?
So I don't know how Baltimore Buffalo is going to go, so I can't pick that game. The game that I think that could go totally different than the way we see it is Bucks at Saints.
Okay.
I think that's the game that you can see going a different way. The public and what the betting public is telling you is it's Rams at Packers. That's what they're telling you. 55% of money is actually on the Browns. So
I agree with you. I don't think you can pick Buffalo, Baltimore, because I don't think anybody would be surprised
if either one
of them win that game. Correct. For me, I think it's Cleveland, Kansas City. I mean, you're -10. I think everybody just expects them to be in the championship game next weekend. That's the game that I think. I think it has the potential to go crazy because I think Cleveland has enough talent to win that game. Again, I don't think they're going to, but that's the one I think could actually turn that.
That's a really good question. Control, what are your thoughts on that?
I feel like the game that really can go sideways is a game that I feel like I'm the only one on this side of the fence, but it's that Rams-Packers game. It seems like everyone is leaning towards the Packers just easily covering that game, but I just don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to score 30-plus points against that Rams defense. That's my concern with it.
I just don't think they have to score 30 though.
Yeah,
No.
don't.
I'm not saying they need to, but if they score, 20, 24 points, I think there's a chance LA keeps that game within 6.5.
I it's funny that you say that. I really, really, really think that a nice hammer bet that you can add to this is Packers first half. Because I feel like if the Rams get back in the game, they can backdoor cover that 6.5. Like, it could be a 13-point game. But I think that the Packers jump on them early, and I think the Packers first half's -4. I think that's all stone cold, like lead pipe. It's one of the strongest picks I have all years. I like Packers first half. I'll give you a teaser like I did last week. This one's a 2-team 6-point teaser. Take the Chiefs -4 and the Packers at a pick'em. It's a 2-team 6-point teaser. I like both. I think the 4 allows you a little bit of wiggle room with the Chiefs, and I don't think the Packers are losing the football game. So, any other comments on NFL? I think we're wrapped up.
Well, we got to do the whole goddamn Eagles debacle.
Oh, jeez. Oh, okay.
Jesus.
I didn't want to do this debacle because I'm so annoyed with it. Okay, so Doug Pederson is now out as the coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. What's your first reaction to that, Bill, as a fellow Eagles fan?
It's a chicken shit move by Jeff Lurie.
Okay, that's a nice gut reaction.
About as blunt as I'm going to put it. They did to Doug exactly what they tried to do to Carson. They try to make him the scapegoat for all this. And I know me and you've talked about it a little bit, and I know what you were mad at the same things that were said that I was. Even in, all the video interviews afterwards, Lurie will not put any responsibility of any of this on Howie Roseman.
How about the 5 GMs on our roster comment?
Yeah, well, guess what? The new 5 GMs on your roster that suck. Every one of them sucks.
Oh.
Like, and it was funny, like the reporters were all trying to like be very like diplomatic and political about it and not just come out and trash Howie, but Lurie kept like dancing around it, like he wouldn't give them the answer that they wanted.
The worst part of that, the worst dancing around comment that I couldn't stand was when he kept saying, well, the guy they wanted would get picked right in front of him. You don't prepare for that?
Well, not so much that, but then like, okay, like I go back to the move that annoyed the hell out of me and you last year. you don't think, like it was CeeDee Lamb on the board, you don't think anybody else is trying to move up to get him.
Yeah.
And then you allow your most hated division rival to give up a second-round draft pick, to pretty much flip-flop second-round draft picks to move up and pick them.
No, they had to give up the second.
All right, so fine.
Flip. Yeah, but I would have.
I think the and then if you listen to some of the things that Doug has said since he's been fired, it's very clear what the situation is behind the scenes there. It is a Laurie and Howie call the shots, and you kind of have to be a yes guy to coach that team. I'm very curious to see who ends up taking the job. I think it has to be an offensive-minded guy. I still don't think it is.
It's funny you say that because Laurie is all about the offensive side of football, but the person I think they're going to hire won't be an offensive guy. And I'll get into that in a
That's
second.
fine, because I know we're going to go over that.
Yeah.
I just think the more that comes out, I think the more how much of an anomaly 2017 was. I think we all need to be very realistic.
Do you think it was an anomaly, or do you think the smartest minds in the building left in 2018? Losing John DeFilippo and Frank Wright.
Listen, there's no doubt that that's a part of it. Again, I am not by any means sitting here and dying on the hill of Doug Pederson. I've been as critical with him as anybody else. But if you were only, I think in a perfect world, everybody wanted to wipe the slate clean and start over, which was a new GM, a new coach. My problem is you're now going to bring in a coach who Howie's going to, for lack of a better term, sign off on and want. If this goes sideways again next year, which is going to do, you're going to fire Howie, and now you have to bring in a new GM
who's going to want to pick his coach.
Correct.
Yep. I'm with you.
And then you're picking different personnel situations. I still don't think it's set in stone that Carson's here next year. I don't.
I don't either. He said asset multiple times when he was talking about Carson Wentz.
You know what you do with assets? You trade them.
Yep.
I think that was poor terminology, and everybody keeps pointing to, the Doug and Carson relationship. Let's not be under any false pretenses that Carson has a great relationship with Howie Roseman. Howie Roseman's the one that drafted Jalen Hurts, not Doug Pederson. And I think it's even more clear now that directive to start playing Hurts at the end of the year came down from one of the two of them. I just don't.
I disagree with that.
I don't, only because you look at the way Doug defended him for those 3 or 4 weeks in a row where he should have been benched. So, don't attack me for that. Nobody would have got mad if he would have benched him at that point. But he kept defending him after every game. And in the course of one day, it was a day that the players aren't at the complex, which means it was meetings with Howie and meetings with Laurie. All of a sudden, he went 100% pro Jalen Hurts. I don't buy that at all.
That's fair. I don't agree. I think Doug made that decision. And he was trying to make the decision earlier, and I think that was the green light Howie had gave him, which leads to your point that he's a puppet. Yeah. But I think that Doug was looking to make that decision a couple weeks prior, and he didn't get the clearance from Howie, which is why it all came out in the media.
It could be. It could have went that way. But at the end of the day, like you said, it's a puppet thing, and it's still the same difference in the end.
I think Doug pulled the strings and when he had the meeting with Laurie. I think he was probably pretty disrespectful.
I don't think he was disrespectful, but I do think he went into that meeting and finally stood up for himself.
Yes, correct.
And
disrespectful.
Yeah.
Picked his balls up and said, "What's up?"
Yeah, and then he got fired and he left, and he that's what I mean. He didn't pull any punches. He didn't talk a lot, but his one quote is he's like, "I'm at peace with it." He's like, I got tired of doing this job and being told what to do. And the funny thing is, the more this plays out, I just keep going back to the Chip Kelly thing now. And it's just funny how a lot of what he said is becoming very relevant. Like, everybody was like, oh, like, he pretty much put Howie Roseman in a closet and was like, stay away from the team. Like, you're not a football guy. Like, you don't know what you're doing. And I think the more this plays out, the more he was 100% right. Chip didn't end up doing what he needed to do on the coaching side of things and everything else. But
see, the problem with Chip, and I'm going to get into this in a second, is they gave Chip a lot of power, but not all the power. And the issue that ran into is he got 50% or 60% of what he wanted, but not all of what he wanted. He wanted Mariota.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying Mariota would have been amazing in Philadelphia, but you can't give him all the cachet to like trade McCoy, to trade Jackson, to revamp the team, and then the whole Frank Gore fiasco, and then they signed DeMarco Murray to a bunch of money that was dumb, not trading up to get the quarterback he wants. But you give him the cachet to get rid of players like LaShawn and Deshaun. It felt to me like they're like, yeah, all right, Chip, we'll give you a little bit more. But it still felt to me like there was a power surge, a power control, like something that they were just trying to hold on to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think Howie was ever completely out of the picture. But again, I mean, it just goes to the point where, I mean, you now have two guys in a row that, you know, the common denominator, the issue behind the scenes is Howie Roseman.
Yep.
He obviously has this crazy relationship with Jeff Lurie. Jeff Lurie is going to find out real quick. I don't think Jeff Lurie really comprehends how bad this year was.
No, he does. 100%. I'm
going to tell you why he doesn't, though. A lot of it's noise this year. Do you understand how ugly it gets if that stadium is packed for 8 weeks this year?
That's fair.
It's a million times worse, and he's going to get it next year.
Oh, 100% he's getting it.
That team goes 4-12 next year. Watch.
How do they not?
I'm with you.
That roster stinks.
There's only one person. There's one person, and I'll give him his due. He hasn't told me how they're going to do it yet. Brian Peterman is adamant that we're all looking at this the wrong way, and he's not doing it to troll. Like, he truly believes it. He just hasn't explained it to me yet, so I'm still waiting on that. Okay. I just don't see it. They're minus $70 million into the cap. Regardless if you trade Carson, you're going to get draft picks for Carson if you do it, but you're still eating a ton of money.
Ton. He said Carson even said he would restructure. Go ahead, Control. I'm sorry.
We've been talking Eagles fans. This is your guys' team and everything, but my first reaction to seeing the news was just damn, and I had no other words for it. Just because it seemed like it was a move they were teetering on, but at the same time, I do agree with you, Bill, that move to the quarterback situation was handled because of Howie, and so I felt like, you know, to I guess both of your points is that Doug was this essentially a puppet for them. And so I didn't think they would get rid of the guy who's actually, you know, doing what they tell him to do. And I understand that he wasn't, you know, good this year. But I mean, the guy won you the Super Bowl 3 years ago. And I'm not saying that to say that you have to hold on to guys who won you the Super Bowl 3 years ago. If this was the right time for the Eagles to get rid of them, then they absolutely should have. But to just
you got to clear house.
Leave Howie, it's definitely mind blowing. And I also want to ask you guys, if you guys know anybody in the Philly front office, can you let them know to trade Fletcher Cox to Cleveland just to help you guys with your cap, and then it makes us a little bit better on our defensive line?
Listen, dude, I'm to Gene's point, I don't think people understand what this roster is going to look like next year.
Yeah, so Fletcher Cox probably won't be on the team next year. Just to be clear, I think the Eagles making this move are basically letting you know that they're going to dump a lot of contracts and a lot of salaries. Jeffrey Lurie said it multiple times in that press conference. He's not thinking short term. He's thinking mid and long term. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to dump a lot of players this offseason, and it's not going to be an exciting team to watch next year. I'm sorry, but they are, and they're talking about hiring Adam Gase. If they hire Adam Gase, you should understand completely what this team is trying to do. Completely.
Listen, I said it last week. We're gonna go back to that thing. I'm going to the link. I mean, that's. He also
said in the press conference that he's very offensive minded. Defense is good, but you have to be able to score points, and the top teams are offensive minded. He said that multiple times, which would lead you to believe he wants to hire an offensive head coach. Who do you think they hire? Because we got to move on a little bit. You have anybody like that you would like to see? Who do you think they go with?
I would love for them to hire Daboll.
Okay, that's great. Great name.
I think you're going to see it when this all kind of works out with the uncertainty around Wentz. Unless you have somebody, and I'm not saying this person isn't out there, but unless you have somebody that is dead set on coming here saying I can make Jalen Hurts, you know, a top 10, top 12 quarterback. This isn't a good situation coming into.
No, it's not.
I think you're going to be surprised with who they end up hiring. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Dable or even Bieniemy or any of these guys go, you know what? I want to be a head coach. I don't know if I want to take the jump. Because you got to realize if you're a coordinator like that, you're going to be judged heavily upon what you do with your first
100%.
Your first job as the guy, the head coach. If you go somewhere and suck for 2 or 3 years and get canned, you may never get another job again.
I agree with you.
This is not a desirable situation as we sit here right now. You know, if you come out in 2 weeks and they go, hey, like, we're 100% trading Carson or we're 100% keeping him, until there's some kind of firmed up on that status. And with the cap situation, it's you can't think you're coming here and being successful next year. You can't.
Good shot. Do you have any thoughts on who the Eagles might hire? If you don't, it's fine. I know you're a Cleveland guy.
I think the right fit for them long term would be Bieniemy, but I don't think that he should go there because it's not a good situation. I don't think they'll set him up to succeed right away, and so that could be like a strike on your record. I think I'm with you. Like you said, you know, you heard Adam Gase. I'm thinking like another guy that is going to come in, stink for a couple years, get them some high draft picks, and then they're really going to go after their coach in a few years. So I think Adam Gase is a good name. I'd also throw out there just Bill O'Brien, just as a guy who has.
That would be worse than Gase. That would be worse than Gase.
Exactly.
So
if they hire either one of them, I'm going to lose my mind.
You'd be ready to lose your mind. But if they
I'll be wearing that goddamn Baker jersey every week next year if they hire either one of those guys.
Here is my little outside, like, you know, not great betting odds. Like, this is the person I think they're going to end up getting wowed by in the interview. Robert Saleh, defensive coordinator for the 49ers. I think what they end up doing is they keep Deuce on staff to be their offensive coordinator. They say Deuce, you're running the offense. Robert Saleh, you're running the defense. He's a high energy guy. He's somebody that the Eagles fans can get behind because his energy is so good. He's also a guy that believes in scheme over team. He believes that he can scheme defenses. They traded the Buckner last year to get another draft pick for another young defensive lineman. I know he didn't trade him. Obviously, John Lynch traded him. But my point being is he's a guy that believes in scheme. He created a lot of players that were not, you know, amazing defensive players and put them in the right defensive scheme. Robert Saleh is a name I want you to think of and remember because I think that he's going to come in here high energy and wow them.
He's interviewing tomorrow, I believe.
He is.
I'll tell you, the conspiracy theory person in me thinks they hired Deuce.
That's fair.
And I think they hired Deuce because they know they have a built-in scapegoat for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's kind of bullshit, though.
It is.
I want better for Deuce, just like Snowman on the wireline.
Oh, I'm 100%. I love Deuce.
Same.
But you have a guy that everybody universally in the locker room likes, so as bad as they are next year, they're not going to quit on him.
Malcolm's words kind of help, too.
Yeah, he's not. He's definitely a culture guy. And he's going to – the fans won't come down crazy on him in his first year because of who he is.
I agree.
You know, I'll tell you what I did. I read 2 separate places today to just, you know, get control uneasy. Ryan Day's name came up twice today on 2 separate websites on 2 separate things. That would be crazy. I don't want Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien's going to Alabama, though, I think.
Jesus,
so.
Bill O'Brien. Don't even get me started. All right, guys, we are at like 10:20. We got to move on. We got NHL that kicked off, and it kicked off for a bang for the Philadelphia Flyers. A 6-3 win over the hated Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's go Flyers. Let's go Flyers. Bill, you're the resident NHL guy. You're very listen, I love hockey, but I've been on record, and I say it all the time. I think hockey's great in the playoffs. I think it's moderate in the regular season.
I'm with you.
Playoff hockey is
crazy.
incredible to watch.
That's
fine. Give us your take on the NHL, and then give us your take on the Philadelphia Flyers this year.
It's going to be a fast season. They're down to 56 games because they want to play this season, finish, have a normal off season, and then get back to their normal, kind of what the NBA is trying to do as well, get back to their normal start date next year. So the big thing this year is you have to have depth. This Flyers team probably since I'm talking back like Lindros days. It's probably the deepest team we've ever had. We legit have 3 lines right now that can score. And our 4th line isn't a prototypical checking line per se. Nolan Patrick played tonight, looked good. We have Oscar Lindblom back off his cancer stuff from last year. Their top 9 is as good as anybody's in the league, depth wise. They're very good. Joel Farabee had a great game tonight in the first game. He looks like he took a big step from last year. Frost is going to play a lot this year. The big thing is the back end. Matt Niskanen retired out of nowhere last year. We went out and got Eric Gustafsson, which is a very good offensive defenseman. How he plays in our own zone is going to matter. And then a big thing is going to be Ghost. We need Ghost from 3 years ago. I think if Ghost can bounce back, get his confidence back, play well, they're gonna be a very good team. Goaltending is completely short up. You got Carter Hart, who is
look good tonight. Even allowing 3 goals, still look good.
He's good.
Yeah,
for anybody in the last, obviously we haven't done this podcast for 5 years. I've been talking about Carter Hart with guys I talk about hockey. We've been talking about him for 4 years. He is the real deal. He is everything that we thought he was going to be. He's everything we need him to be. He's going to be the goalie in this city for the next 10 to 12 years. He's a stud. He's a top 10 goalie in the league already.
So on that point, let me ask you 2 questions because you're the resident NHL aficionado.
Yep.
A, does Carter Hart have a better career than Ron Hextall?
Yes.
B, is this Philadelphia Flyers team a Stanley Cup champion this year?
This year?
Yes. Because I think the team they got to knock off would be Tampa. Am I right? That's like the top team in the NHL right now, Tampa.
There's a couple teams out west that are really good. Eastern Conference wise, Tampa's very good. Everybody's super high on Toronto this year because again their roster looks great on paper, but it has the last couple years they can't get the hell out of the first round. So I don't know.
That was literally going to be my point. I love Toronto this year. I think this is going to be the year. They got the young guys. Austin's over there. He's going to have a great year, of course. I just think it's their time. It's been so long. They're like the Browns. They haven't won a championships since the '60s. So I'm gonna pull for them.
Yeah,
you're pulling for a team from Canada,
dude. I mean, it's kind of close to Toronto. It's close to Cleveland.
We don't have a team in Cleveland, so
it's true.
Fair.
Again, Toronto's good, but I mean, there's a lot of rumblings that they're trying to trade Nylander, who's one of their best guys. So I mean, if that does end up happening, I don't know. The big thing that goaltender depth is going to be a big thing this year because there are a ton of back-to-backs or 3 games in 4 days type things. We're set up really well for that. They brought back Brian Elliott again on a 1-year deal. He was great last year. He's a great backup for Carter Hart.
Eric says everyone's picking Colorado on the wireline.
Colorado's top 6 is just disgusting. They have Nathan McKinnon who might win the MVP again. They're very good and they're very fast and they're very skilled. They can put up points. They can score goals real fast. Defense is kind of their issue. Goaltending, they're okay. Colorado and Las Vegas are pretty much the odds-on betting favorites to come out of the West.
Colorado and Vegas out of the West. Who are the betting favorites in the East?
We're actually tied for second. I fully expect this team to be at least in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Okay, that's fair.
If they stay healthy, they are absolutely good enough to get to the finals. I mean, they're good enough to win it. Like I said, with Nolan Patrick healthy and Lindblom back healthy, our first 9 is as good as anybody in the league.
Do you think G still deserves the C?
He looked good. Yes, I'm a big G guy. So if people want to call in and argue about G, I will cite stats all day. So don't come with any weak.
Just not playoff stats. I get it.
Nobody scored in the playoffs last year. And as bad as everybody makes him out to be last year, he was 3rd on the team in playoff points last year.
Bill, I got a question for you.
Sure.
So if any moves, what move do you think that the Flyers should make to actually be a contender? And I mean, I know you think they're a contender now, but what puts them over the edge for you?
A defenseman.
It's probably going to be a defenseman. The problem is, I think we have roughly $3 million in cap. So if we're going to pick up any big, that means somebody else is leaving. I've for 3 years wish they could get rid of Voracek somehow. Nobody's just going to take that contract.
For 3 years, they said he was overrated too.
I hate it when he signed the contract.
Yep.
Don't get me started because we'll be here all night with Jake. They've been linked to Goudreau a lot. What they want for him is too much, in my opinion. I don't know how much movement you're going to see because with it being a short season, there's going to be a lot of teams with, still 15 games to go that are mathematically going to be in it. So it's going to come down to those teams that from the get-go, like, we're screwed, we're out of this. Like, let's see what we can get for our pieces. Lane from Winnipeg is still a big name that's floating out there because he hates the organization. He doesn't want to be there. He's a great player. There's questions about his character and his locker room stuff. And he's going to carry a big price tag. It's if you ask me if I had a need right now, I would tell you I'd want another defenseman.
Yeah, I agree with
100%.
And I'm not even a huge I'm a huge Flyers fan, but not an NHL guy.
You have Provorov and Sanheim, who are both two of the best young defensemen in the league. We got Gustafson, who's good. Ghost, Myers, Braun, who we're solid. We're better back there than we have been in a long time.
I agree.
We still got ways to go though. If we get 2017 Ghost, we're in real good shape.
Should be a fun season.
It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fast. I keep seeing
a fun season.
I keep seeing if you're a hockey fan in general, I think it's 116 nights in a row. There's a national game on. Like you would get blasted in the face with hockey this year.
We got a lot of hockey fans on the line. It's 10:28. It's a little bit late. We have to talk about James Harden. We have to talk about the trade. James Harden that came down a couple hours before we came on a show. James Harden to the Nets. The Nets did exactly what they did 10 years ago, was it? When they did the whole trade for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce and destroyed their entire franchise. And they're going to do it again because Brooklyn's great at doing that. I'm going to give you my opinion on it right away and on it. Go to used to. I think it's a terrible trade for Brooklyn. They have 4 first-round picks and 4 pick swaps they gave away, plus Karis LeVert, who's probably a future All-Star. Not to mention their best defensive player. They have nobody on that team that plays defense at this point. None. No. You have a crazy Kyrie who's out of his damn mind, who might retire. You got a fat James Harden, which is really hard to be fat and play professional basketball. Like his new name,
you do run a lot.
His new name is Gene Harden. Like I'm serious. Like it's unbelievable. It's a terrible trade for Brooklyn, and if they don't win the NBA Finals this year, they're going to be the worst team in basketball for another 10 years.
Those strip club buffets catch up to you, bro.
Oh, man.
They're not healthy food they're serving there.
What is your take on the Harden trade, Cottrell?
So how I feel is that I think that James Harden normally would make them a better team. The way this NBA works now, honestly, you have to have at least 2 or 3 dominant guys to really compete for a championship now. I know Miami didn't have that last year, but there's also a reason why people really didn't favor them to beat that Lakers team. And I love Miami, by the way. But going back to Brooklyn, I really just feel like this is the most chaotic and disastrous way for Steve Nash to start his career as a rookie head coach. And like you said, Gene, I really feel like Kyrie is going to retire this year. Like he's not in it for basketball right now. James Harden's out of shape. He doesn't want to play hard. I think it may work just because him and Kevin Durant have played together before, and so they should have kind of a natural chemistry. And I'm sure Kevin Durant was one of the guys kind of pushing for that deal. But at the same time, I just think that the Houston Rockets actually won this trade because they swapped Karis LeVert for Victor Oladipo, and they got all those draft picks. And I just think that they're gearing towards the future, but they're also in a position that they could sneak into the playoffs this upcoming season.
They're going to compete this year. John Wall, Christian Wood, Victor Oladipo, DeMarcus Cousins. That's not a terrible roster.
Boogie.
No, not at all.
Love Boogie. He's not playing well, though.
Dude,
starting very slow. Coming off 2 really bad injuries.
That was my point when, like you were bringing up earlier. I mean, he's coming off pretty much an ACL and an Achilles for a big guy. Like, it's going to take some time for the big man.
By the way, Bill O'Brien, Alabama was just announced. Shout out to Eric on the wire line. Thank you.
Yeah, I figured. I mean, that was kind of the big number that came
Kind of
out.
glad it didn't Philadelphia Eagles. That would have been scared me, Control.
Houston absolutely won the trade. I was a little shocked with what they're going to do, though. They got rid of LeVert because Oladipo's contract's up. I guess you're doing that to clear money for next year.
Yes.
I think LeVert would have been a great piece on that team going forward, though. He's been really good, and I know he's a Michigan guy, but he's a gifted scorer. He can score. He's definitely a piece you could have been, maybe like a 6th guy, or definitely like a very complimentary piece to Wall and a couple other superstars. But I guess Houston wants Oladipo and the contract coming off the books next year. They're going to be really good in 2 or 3 years as long as they don't miss on picks. Brooklyn put all their eggs in a 2-year basket. They have to win it this year or next year. Or
it's a 2-year basket if they can convince Kyrie Irving to come back and play basketball. Well, it's not a 2-year basket if it's just James Harden and Kevin Durant. They're not winning.
Well, that's where the LeVert,
mark that shit down.
That's where the LeVert thing comes in crazy to me, because if Kyrie doesn't come back but you still keep LeVert, you then still have LeVert, Harden, and Durant.
There's no chance that any team was trading for Kyrie after what he was doing right now.
Oh no,
Kyrie ruined that.
Oh no, I agree. Listen. Kyrie clearly is not on the same page as Nash. I think nobody's talking about that part. You've now put all this on the plate of a coach that has 9 games under his belt.
Correct.
Listen, we talked about it 8 weeks ago when the rumors of this started first happening, and we all 3 of us said the same thing. How do we possibly see the 3 of them coexisting with one basketball? When Kyrie and James Harden play the same exact game. Durant was the one we all agreed was going to be okay because he plays off the ball anyway. I said it then and I say it now. I am here to watch the shit show. I'm here for it. I can't wait.
They're going to win a lot of big games too. They're going to win a lot of games where they're going to outscore people. But it's going to be a shit show. Control, I could see you chomping at the bit to get in. Let me know what your thoughts are.
I was just going to say, I love that the Cavs found a way to just swoop in and grab Jared Allen for literally pretty much nothing. It was the first rounder, but it was the Bucks. It was the Bucks' first rounder, so it was going to be high 20s, maybe 30. I mean, I doubt it, but maybe 30.
That's a very underrated part of that trade.
It is.
Jared Allen for a 27th pick.
I think everybody won in this. And the funny thing is, too, they were talking about it, too, Durant can opt out after next year as well. Mm-hmm. So there's a chance next year, after next year, none of them are there. And then Brooklyn is there with an absolute dog shit roster.
Yes.
And no draft picks.
That's what they did with Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett. Brutal. You figured you would learn from experience. Brooklyn, I hope you win I hope you lose the championship. But Brooklyn, if you're a Brooklyn fan, you got to hope you win a championship this year, because I guarantee you this, you're going to be awful for the next 15 years again. It's what you do. It's what Brooklyn does. Guys, it's 10:35. We got to wrap it up. You got to be kidding me. Sorry we couldn't get more in the NBA. We will get into this. Obviously, NFL's kicking down. We're done college football.
There's going to be a lot of NBA, a lot of NHL going forward.
That is correct.
We will fill your needs with those sports going forward.
Cottrell, remotely, give us your you got to be kidding me.
So I was going back and forth between a lot, but my you got to be kidding me, actually, even I changed it from what I said earlier. My you got to be kidding me this week is Chase Claypool and his comments that he made on his TikTok a couple weeks ago. Well, not even a couple weeks ago, after their loss to the Browns. He's talking about the Browns are going to get bounced anyway. And I saw, Ryan Clark, Jarvis Landry, and Adrian Claiborne, these guys who've been around for a long time, they're saying, kid, you have no room to talk about who's getting bounced because you're going to be watching the game for your couch. And I understand that he's a young kid, but at the same time, I feel like they need to have some coaches step in, just because the way Juju was acting earlier in the year, it was dancing on the logos, knowing how disrespectful that part is. And now you got Claypool pretty much doing the same thing, bashing on people, especially after they lost to that same team. I just feel like Claypool needs to grow up, and the Steelers need to get on top of that.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Claypool, and you just seen the end of the Pittsburgh Steelers run. Their run of 500 teams or better is over. It's over.
I was actually literally just going to ask you a question. If they have a bad year next year, does Tomlin finally get axed?
Yes, and I'll tell you what, Ben Roethlisberger will not be on the roster to start the year.
That's interesting. I know we were.
Yeah. $41 million. Yeah, he's done.
Yeah,
his career's over. They're going to force him to retire, and if he doesn't, they're going to cut him.
You know who Pittsburgh's going to draft?
Mac Jones.
Yep.
I was telling the Cottrell about this is a bad idea for them. Mac Jones play. This is how we got into the cold weather quarterback thing. We will talk about it closer to draft.
Got it.
Go ahead.
I'm going back to James Harden. This whole, I'm never fully 100% like, oh, owners are always right. Like, listen, like the whole, like I'm on record with the whole baseball thing. Like when you've billionaires arguing with millionaires about like how people are going to get paid, like that's disgusting. I don't want to hear it. Like figure it out, get on the field, give the fans what they want. This whole notion now of players pretty much demanding, what they want to do, when they're going to do it, blah, 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 blah. It's getting very tiresome very quickly. Listen, no problem when things are going right and honoring your contract when things are going right, when you're winning games, when the owners are paying you your $1 million paychecks every week, and so forth and so on. When things don't start going your way, everybody's gut reaction now is, you know what? I want out of here. I want to get traded. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The things that James Harden said at his press conference last night were disgusting. It's another reason I think everybody's now rooting for this trade to just be abysmal. He sat there, like we've all talked about, 15, 20 pounds overweight, coming off a 17-point game where he played terribly. They lost to the Lakers. And you throw everybody in the organization under the bus and take no blame for your actions or how you've played this year, just to drive the wedge even deeper to force their hand to make a trade. I really wish owners, to combat this, would start taking somebody like James Harden and be like, you know what, dude, I'm going to trade you now. Have fun in Sacramento. And start trading these guys to smaller markets or not putting them where they want to go. Like the selfishness and it's just tiresome, and it's across all sports now. I mean, you're starting to see it in football now too. Baseball's a little bit tougher because it's just not that easy to trade people, and hockey players just don't do it actually, so it doesn't happen in hockey. But that the whole selfish player thing, I'm getting tired of real quick. So for me this week, that's it for me.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Mine's going to do the NBA scheduling. It's not really too crazy, but what they did the Philadelphia 76ers this past Sunday, having them play with 7 players and one guy dressed that was hurt, was abysmal, and they didn't cancel the game. Seth Curry had a COVID-19 test on Saturday. They made the Sixers play with 7 guys. Everybody was on this, like they needed to be checked. They didn't have COVID. They were high risk, just like Kevin Durant is this week. But then they cancel like 3 Celtics games. They cancel a game tonight. That game needed to be canceled. They didn't do it because a West Coast team had already flew out there. It's a joke that they did it. It's just like the NFL. They have different set of rules for different teams. Doc Rivers said it best. That team shouldn't have been playing. That was a joke. They fought their ass off. I'll give the Sixers a bunch of credit, but the NBA scheduling, come on.
Come on, you gotta be kidding me.
Not too long on that one. Final thoughts, guys. I have one I wanted to add at the end if you guys want to.
Nope, I got nothing.
No, I mean, next week, more NBA. I mean, I'm assuming Harden's going to play his first game by then. So, I mean, I guess we'll have a somewhat idea how this is going to go. We'll see if Kyrie's back from trying to prove the earth is flat, if he's playing. And we get to talk about whatchamacall next week, which will be fun. We get UFC next week, so Connor.
Yeah,
it's Connor.
Can't wait to do that.
Connor Fight Week, which means there's Connor Fight Week press conferences, which means we should have some good stuff to talk about.
I just want to give a quick shout out to the guys that were before us, Toxic Radio family, Hungry for Hope. They had a great interview earlier, and if you haven't listened to the show, if you're listening to Wire to Wire and you're a boxing fan, they had Ed Lattimore on earlier. He was a professional boxer, but he's a great interview. And if you haven't yet, give them a shout, give them a listen. Hungry for Hope. Very good show. They have a little sports talk on them. I just want to give them a shout, and the Toxic Family as a group coming together to be able to shout each other out. And Donnie and Tim, great guys. Yanni talking sports. So I just wanted to give them a quick shout before we signed out. This is Wire to Wire. I'm going to remind you real quick before we sign out that get your Venmos in so we can get your order in by Friday at noon. This is Wire to Wire week 14. We're signing out.